Welcome to Infamous. Ian, this is not a professional podcast. If you're used to professional podcasts, you've come to the wrong show.
This is good. Infamous exposed.
I catch it all. I do catch it all.
Oh, I'm sitting here. Are we all in the frame? Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why is this chair wet?
I had the wet chair and I swapped it with Ian, but now he sat there. That was so rude. I don't know why I did that. No one interrupt!
Filming in progress.
Filming in progress!
Welcome to episode 3 of Infamous Exposed. Today,
we have
Ian Richardson. So we were meant to film this podcast last night.
Yeah, but it didn't happen.
Because we spontaneously got invited to the strip club here in Fort Lauderdale called Vixen's.
Yeah.
Which shout out to them for making our Friday night incredible. And it was also Good Friday. So we had a very good Friday.
We're definitely not becoming politicians anytime soon.
Yes, especially Ian, he's not. But yeah, it was a really wild night. We went to our favourite bar called Fat Cats, and then from there we got in a bus, which, let me tell you, that was an experience in itself.
They picked us up from Fat Cats, and we were a little bit paranoid.
Very paranoid.
Because
These guys are paranoid.
we were paranoid because there was a smoke machine in there, and I was like, wow, they could just be gassing us, and then we'd go across the border to Mexico. So that's
So everyone was partying, having a great time, and you just look over at me, and I'm just like staring.
And we didn't know that we were thinking this until we talked the next morning, and we both thought the exact same thing.
I was like, did you? And she was like, yeah, were you paranoid? I was like, yeah. But it was like crazy. The music was so loud that we couldn't hear for the rest of the night. And then
we got to the club, and it was, I don't know, what did you think of it?
It was massive. Like,
It was
literally,
massive.
probably the largest strip club I've actually ever seen. It's probably like between 80, I think they said that up to 200 girls work there, like, in a single night.
It was
which is,
crazy.
Actually insane.
It was the most American thing I've ever witnessed.
Literally.
Like, I felt like I was in GTA or like
it
a
was
scene out of a
GTA.
movie. Like,
Yes,
was
literally.
GTA.
There was guys
GTA.
like literally going up behind the
but
girls.
they were just like didn't care. They're just like,
and then I
throwing
looked
their
over.
like money. They
Yeah.
collect the money with a rake with LEDs on it, and then
Yeah,
money's
and,
like
like,
And then
literally
and I seen a
raked up.
guy like doing that, like the typical throwing $1 bills at this girl, and she was just twerking, and I was just like,
it was the
oh
best.
Lord.
We get to the club, and we get it put into a VIP booth, and they bring out, some signs and the girls and the bottles of vodka and Jameson.
We were very spoiled.
Very spoiled.
You rock up and they start putting like cast photos of us on all the screens. Like they're announcing on a microphone. Like,
Yeah.
everybody from Australia, like
Yeah.
Infamous, the show is here, and like you feel very
just, like,
spoiled. It's
You're like a rock star, and then they
it's
made us.
actually ridiculous. Like,
But they like made us throw serviettes. Like,
I know they've got napkins, and I think maybe, I don't know, they just like to throw them in the air, and it was
I think the idea is to make it look like you're throwing money.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
poor
it
people
was-
money.
poor people money.
honestly, most of the night you couldn't
very,
enjoy
like,
it because
spectacular.
but you couldn't enjoy it because like every 5 minutes they'd be like handing you like packets of serviettes
And they were trying to
us
clean them
throw
up.
it. But then it was like everywhere, all in our drinks. Like it was the funniest thing.
But yeah, like they looked after us like quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like, they did a fantastic job.
They did.
An awesome party for us, which was like super welcoming. So shout out to Vixen's.
Yes.
The sexy cabaret.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
It's like
so
very fun night out.
Yes, and they also have a hairless cat, which I also thought was a monkey for 20 minutes. I was like,
She was like, there's a monkey.
oh, there's a monkey.
And I was like, I don't know if that's a monkey.
Yeah, and then I looked, and it was actually a hairless cat, like a sphinx. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
The night just got like progressively better but weirder at the same time. Like they brought out those characters, and then
Well, I like the dead mouse.
characters,
Oh,
costumes,
awesome. LEDs.
and then the girls were doing crazy shit. Like, you can film in the club.
Yeah, you're allowed to film the naked women. Like,
And
it's
then-
really bad.
Next minute, Paige was gone, one of our dancers. And then next thing you see, there's a zip line, and she's just coming across on the zip line.
I couldn't believe it. I look up and
believe
Paige is
it.
attached to a zip line going past the stage. It's like, what is happening?
Happening.
For those of you playing at home, a zip line is literally just like wire.
I think people know what a
People
zip
know
line
what a
is.
zip
I didn't know what a zip line is because he come up to me and he's like, "You want to go on the zip line?" And I was like, "No, no,
Is that like a swing?
Is
of
that like
some
a sex
kind?
swing?
Well, I thought he said, "Can I see your zip line?" And he
right.
kept saying that, and I said, "What?" And he goes, "You're the funky one of the group, aren't you?" And I said, "What's a zip line?" And then it clicked, and I was like, "Oh."
Not even 5 or 10 minutes later, you see Jansen coming across on the zip line. Because I think he saw Paige, he was like, I need to do that.
No, but they wouldn't let boys do it.
They
Like,
only
you had to
wanted
be
girls.
a girl.
Yeah,
And then they
right.
had sparklers. Like, it was the funniest
the
thing.
best.
We will post that
The
video.
mini firework things?
Yeah,
like, they're
just,
crazy.
oh, it was amazing.
Yes,
So
that
that's
was
why
that.
we didn't film the podcast last night.
Yeah, we had a very
Yes.
interesting night instead.
Very interesting.
But I'm glad we all did it, because if we stayed into the podcast, we'd have had mad FOMO about it.
Yeah, I
we wouldn't
would've
have had
regretted
like a good podcast tonight. Like,
No, exactly.
yeah. So we had a
So-
crazy wild night. And we're also going to Miami in 2 days, so that's also going to be another crazy night as well, hopefully.
So Ian Richardson,
Hello.
you started performing at Infamous when in 2020 when we were
Yeah, so I
Right.
joined the show. I think I got a message in July saying, July 2020, like literally like mid-pandemic, that they were casting. I saw the last hand balancer made a post saying like, "Hey, we're looking for a hand balancer." I sent in an application, and I think like a couple days later, I got like got a text message from Pepe actually being like, "Hey, Ian, like, yeah, I see your stuff on Instagram. Like, it looks good. Like, do you want to come a job and this is what the duties are and whatever." And I was like, yes, because I think at the time there's literally only
Nothing.
2 shows operating
In the world.
which was like Infamous and Pink Flamingo on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
I'll definitely
hectic.
take a job. This is like a godsend. So
Yeah.
that was did the 2 weeks hotel quarantine and like did handstands and watched movies for 2 weeks in a hotel room.
was it.
Wow.
Got pretty over it by the 10th day, and then arrived, and here we are.
yeah.
Yeah. And,
And
that
you-
was when we met you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the day I met Ian.
The first night I met Emmeline, I'm like, first kind of time I like leave the caravan to like have a social interaction. There's like a campfire going on, and literally like there's like a group of dogs on the lot that we were. And Emily, I was like approaching from like a distance, and like people heard me walking over. And Emmeline full on's like, "Oh my God, who's that? Go get him!" And all the dogs just go, "Arr, arr, 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 arr," and literally like charge me, like barking at me. I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like literally, Emmeline like set the dogs on me. And she
Which,
thought
like,
it was,
I thought was funny.
she thought it was hilarious.
But I didn't
and
know
I was
you
like
still-
low key annoyed. I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, they might have actually. I don't know these dogs. They might have actually attacked me. Like, but the dogs were lovely, but they didn't. But I was a bit
Yeah,
scared.
I should not have done that. Like, same with one time I slapped you in the face with a banana.
You know those like reaction videos where you like sneak up on somebody and slap them with a banana? Emmeline did it to Merrick, I think, one day. It was like kind of got him and he was like, haha. Unfortunately, I was having like a kind of a bad day, and like Emmeline low key just like I don't know if she tapped me on the shoulder or something. I'm kind of like, what? Just got pow, like absolutely smacked with this banana.
Wait, can I release that video on the Infamous Exposed?
My expression is just like, oh, like why did you do that? Like
That was our
very
first
sad,
fight.
very sad. That was our first time.
First
That was our
fight.
first fight.
Yes, back in the day. But
We made up since then. Don't worry.
yeah, we are best friends.
I have PTSD from banana peels.
And dogs.
And dogs.
And me in general.
and Emmeline in general.
So you went to NICA.
Yeah.
How many years did you study at NICA, and what is NICA?
So for those that don't know, NICA is the National Institute of Circus Arts, and that's where an institute in Melbourne that I trained at and learned circus at. So in like year 12 in high school, I did the audition. But before that, like 6 months earlier, I did like the pre-audition workshop. So they essentially run you through a like a mock audition process, and like you basically do the audition, but like as a rehearsal, and they give you all of your scores for like strength, flexibility, performance. So then what happened was I did the real audition, and I brought in with my old audition scores, and in my like little interview that I had, I said like, this is how much I've improved, you know, like in this 6 months. So, like, I kind of came in, I wasn't expecting to get to get in at all, really, but I was like, hey, listen, like, I worked really hard, and this is like how much I've improved already. Wow. And I think they were like, oh wow, okay, that's like kind of cool.
This is kind of on par with your Excel spreadsheet. This is kind of like a. So if you would explain your Excel
He's a man
spreadsheet
of statistics and facts.
Like, this is another training method.
Yeah,
someone asked us about training methods.
Yeah, this is very interesting. When Ian was telling me like last week, I was like, whoa.
It's crazy how different artists, you know, approach training. Yeah.
So this was like what they're talking about is like I was telling Emmeline about for act creation. I kind of made like hand balancing as a specialty. I think is very measurable, like compared to other. To me, it's very measurable
compared to dancing.
Yeah, compared to something like dancing, you know. So what I've done is I've basically taken like what I consider to be like probably like around 17 of like I think some of the most spectacular hand balancing acts that I've seen in like from men. And I basically created like a score system between like what tricks do they have in it, like what variety of moves do they have, like what equipment do they use, and kind of made a scoring system. I think is out of 12 or 13 for like skills, and then I think out of 7 for equipment. You know, like do they have like, you know, like do they have people doing a hand balancing? Like do they do like certain positions? You know, do they hit certain angles with their body? And for equipment, it's like, oh, do they have like really tall canes, or do they have like a high platform they're balancing on? Or do they do a block drop, or do they have like turning canes that swinch around? And essentially, you can kind of like grade all of these acts and get like an average.
Yeah.
And so what you can do then is you can compare your own act against the average, so you know how to what to work on to make your act like kind of like world class in inverted commas, you know. Like,
that is insane.
It's like pretty nerdy.
It's very nerdy, but I love
interesting, like how your brain works like that, and
especially
for me, I don't do that.
And also because like I don't know. There's some people obviously are creative, but there's people that are really creative and just make it up and like go with whatever, and then you're like literally so factual about
and this is what I wanted to talk about, is when you're creating an act and a routine, what is your creation process? Because for me, I pick music and I work off music, because with trapeze it's more flowy, it's more like dancey, and I have like tricks in my head about what I want, but I literally just mold the tricks to fit the music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So what do you do? Like skills and that, and then music? Like
it kind of really depends what kind of act that I've made. Because like when I've made 2 acts now for Infamous, and it was kind of a different performance style that I was kind of used to. You know, like a lot of the acts I've performed for hand balancing in the past have been comedy, and for this show I kind of had to make a more serious, like sexy routine. The first act that I made, I was given a piece of music, so I chose, just for simplicity's sake, to use the same music as the previous artist. And so I basically, you get given a time frame, so you say like you've got your length of track, and then you try, for myself, I try to like fit, okay, like what tricks can I put in that give me like that show enough skill and also give me enough rest time before doing more sequences, you know. So often I'm trying to calculate like, okay, what tricks do I really want to put in, and then how much time do I need before I can do the next tricks again, and then from there, the last thing I kind of make is the choreography, because choreography is not like a strong suit of mine, so I might get, you know, like save it yourself, or for the first act I called a friend, my friend Jake, to see, like, get some moves from him to help me out. So I definitely like start, I think I'm very similar, like I find a piece of music that I like, and it's like, okay, like what skills can I fit in, and then how can I match the skills to the music in some way?
With the routine that I'm doing now, over the break, I just put my headphones in with the music that I liked, and I didn't even know if I could do the tricks that I was thinking of in my head. I just kind of just envisioned, like, okay, what would look really cool here?
Oh, right.
And I just sat and I just went through and created an entire routine in my head. And then I was like, okay, I don't actually know if I can do that yet. So then I'm going to try and do it. And it, you know, some things worked and then some things didn't, obviously. I'm like, that was crazy. I don't know why I thought I could do that.
Yeah.
Or like, and then, you know, you have to fit it to
Yeah.
Like the music, and then add little accents and add all of that type of stuff.
And will you like kind of pick a trick that like you're kind of working on and then say like, okay, I'm going to work on this particular trick to put in the routine?
Yeah, so I'm doing that right now. That's like with I'm doing the hanging by my feet.
Yeah.
My feet. And I'm doing the 1 foot. So that's something that I could put a new routine in right now if it wasn't for that trick.
Yeah,
I'm working on that trick to get it in, and as soon as that's good and done, like, and I'm going to do it swinging, then
Yeah, wow.
I'm going to put in the routine.
That'd be awesome.
So that's, I'm working on one thing to hopefully make it good.
Well, that, like with those, like, with what tricks do I put in the act, you know, that's where I start using that score system, you know, because it's like, okay, like, I know I need to try and tick off this trick, this trick, this trick. How can I make those tricks into sequences? You know, what tricks do I maybe put earlier when I'm fresh, you know, or like what tricks do I want to put in that I know I'm going to nail every time, you know, it's another thing. Like,
Do you put your hardest tricks at the start or the end, or is it all spread out?
That's a good question. Like, I think for me at the moment, my hardest trick that I do in the act is at the end, actually. And that kind of works because it kind of makes like almost like a bit of a finale, you know, like it's kind of interesting. Like some acts you kind of want to build up to have a finale point. But then it's funny with hand balancing is you'll see a lot of routines will sometimes put their biggest strength move early in the routine. So you can get that out of the way when you're fresh, and then you might finish on something that's maybe a little bit more technical, but not as like powerful necessarily.
That's me. Like I start the trapeze off with like meat hooks, which is like all of the really stuff that I would be fatigued by the end of the act if I did it right at the end.
Yeah.
And then I finish the act on the next spin, which to me, because I've been doing it since I was like 10, it's very crazy to the audience, but to me it's not that hard, you know what I mean?
Really?
So
Wow.
but it looks good, and people are like, that's crazy, but to me it's, you know, not as, you know, as hard as like the meat hook stuff, which they would probably be like,
and
that's not,
the next spin probably gets the best reaction as well. You know, it's not necessarily the most physical, the hardest trick.
No.
Like, hand balancing, the croc, like the crocodile always gets nearly always gets the biggest applause, and it's literally probably the easiest trick in my act.
What I say all the time is like your easiest tricks, people are just like, oh my god. And then you do like your hardest tricks that you've worked for like years or months perfecting, and they're just like,
oh yeah, whatever.
That's so good.
And
like,
it's so funny because I've heard people say like, oh, you know, you can make an act that's like all easy tricks, and the audience won't know any better. And it's like, that's true to a point, but the people who hire you, they're going to know if all your tricks are easy tricks, you know? So if you want to secure employment, you know, you've got to making sure you're putting in good tricks as well as the crowd pleasers.
And then I also think about people who are the performers when they come to the show. And it's like, no, I need good stuff for them. They're going to be the ones judging me the most, and they're who I like care about the opinion the most. Is other performers and people you look up to and stuff like that.
Yeah, but then like compared to dancing, that like if you can do tricks, it's cool, but that doesn't matter if you're like not a good performer. So you could stand there and just do the most simplest thing, and that's how you like capture someone. It's stage rather than like 10 backflips in a row. It's like, that's cool, but
that's what I think growing up in the circus was good for me, like teaching stage presence in that way. You know, like just I could be the, you know, not the best, you know, good at like technique and stuff like that, but I think growing up in the circus gave me like the confidence of performing in front of a crowd, and then gave me that stage presence.
Well, you can get so many repetitions in early, you know, like you kind of can get rid of the nerves like very, very early in your development, like, you know, like
literally
you're literally like, it gets to a point where not that you don't care, but you're not afraid of judgment in the same way, you know. It's like obviously you care about the act, but like you can be more immune to like feeling stressed about and, you know, a weaker response from a crowd, you know.
And do you ever feel judged if you're not having a good day and you're a bit shaky, do you feel judged, or do you get upset and in your head?
You know, like I'm human, you know, like I think when I have a shakier routine, probably the audience still won't be able to tell like as much as I will know, you know, so I might be like, like I don't ever really, like I might come down like 2 out of 100 times for like the pop changes, but like I don't fall regularly from in the routine or anything like that.
Yeah, it's very rare.
The breadth of it being a off run is quite small within how it might look on stage, you know?
Yeah.
But I might do it and be like, oh, kind of like that was a bit annoying, you know, or like, oh, that wasn't as smooth as I would like every time, you know? And like, I think everyone's their own worst critic in that regard. Like,
I get more embarrassed if like the winch is wrong or something like that, and then like if it hits me in the head. Like I get really embarrassed, or if I feel like my fringe is like over in a really funny way, then I get embarrassed.
That one
like
time.
I couldn't care if I miss my tricks or something. I don't know why, because the audience never notices.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like the littler things, I'm always in my head about it. I'm
like the one time Danté wore her roller in her fringe.
my fringe roller.
Oh yeah,
like,
that was recently.
In between,
hey?
just the
It was
other
like
week.
last week.
I left it in during one of the dance numbers, and I had to rip it out as I was dancing. Like that, I was embarrassed by that.
It was really funny. I was embarrassed for you.
Yeah,
I've been embarrassed. Like sometimes in the act I like rip the canes out of the bass, and some shows like. You know, I always try and do it the same way, but some shows like one cane will go and the other one will get stuck. So you're kind of doing like you kind of like,
Literally.
and like it's very difficult to not kind of break and kind of like laugh because you just made an idiot of yourself,
And
even though it's
you
a
know
complete
that it's like
embarrassment.
weird, but no one
And it's
else
like
probably
you kind of
knows.
have to acknowledge it to own it, you know. Like you have to be like, oh, that was kind of like whatever.
And some people like you feel like, oh my god, they're laughing at me, but they probably have no idea.
probably didn't even.
I'm
they might
always
have thought
like,
that's
oh my
probably
god,
a part of it, you know.
Yeah, they're like, I feel like people laughing, but it's all in my head.
Yeah, I always get weird in Merrick's act whenever he drops stuff and he wants me to like run and pick it up quick, but I want to walk slow and be sexy. And like every time I reach down, I'm always like doing really weird stuff, and the audience is probably like, why is she doing that?
Yeah, but then they probably also do not care.
Yeah,
because it's just
I know,
whatever.
right?
Well, the audience like a comeback story, you know. Like sometimes if you
Miss and then
you make a mistake, you know, they love seeing that second attempt, you know. And sometimes it gets a better response that way than actually nailing it the first time.
especially in the flying act.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a huge thing in the flying act.
Sorry, back to Nika.
Okay, yeah.
How long have you been hand balancing for?
So I kind of, when people ask me how long have I been handstanding for, I sort of count it from when the time I started Nika. You know, so I'll say, you know, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23.
So you didn't start whenever you were a kid, like you were.
No, that's not why. I graduated in 2017. So it's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So it's like nearly approaching, this is the 9th year now.
Yeah, but you didn't grow up doing it as a kid. Like
No.
it was so random.
No, like, so literally, I was doing like, I did like track and field athletics for the majority of high school. And part of my training for track and field was doing like kind of like body weight calisthenics style training. So like Roman rings, like pull-up bars. And I started like walking on my hands like up and down the basketball court, you know, as like practice, you know, like I thought that was kind of fun, you know, it's like a trick you can kind of show off doing, you know. And at the time I was doing drama and performance studies as a subject at school because it was so much fun, and honestly it didn't feel like working, you know, like I enjoyed it so much that it was like I was happy to put lots of time into that. I didn't feel like work, you know. And a circus came to my hometown, and that was why like, oh, this is like fitness and performance in one. So like when I was training for maybe like a year like for my Nike audition, but I don't really count that as like I don't count that in when I say how long I've been hand balancing for, you know.
Infamous exposed.